If you've seen videos on movie theory, you probably know what an auteur is. Literally the French word for author, it's the concept of the director as the major driving creative force behind a movie. Everything from the story, the special effects, the lighting, the camera movements is of a distinct style that can be attributed to the director. This isn't 100% related to the death of the author or la mort de l'auteur theory, where you divorce the author from their work. I'm arguing that this theory can also be applied to video games. Today I'm going through the weird and wacky world of some of the big games developers I could think of off the top of my head, what makes them distinct, and what I think of them. We as a society always seem to think of teenage girls as having a fascination with celebrities, but like, have you seen this man? Hideo Kojima is probably one of the most notable game developers of all time, most recently known for his work on the Metal Gear Solid series and Death Stranding, but has also made a whole load of other games besides the modern ones, like Snatcher and Policenauts, two somewhat related sci-fi detective games. You can kind of tell from the get-go, this man loves movies. Snatcher shares a lot of similarities with the sci-fi movies of old that I've never seen, what with the humanoid robots that look like people. Policenauts is a detective movie in space!
And now, Pigs in Space!
The Metal Gears are action movies, but also they're games, and even got at least two people from big movies that I know of. Cam Clark was the singing voice of adult Simba from The Lion King 2. But also here's my impression of Kiefer Sutherland in MGS5. That's a joke. I know that a lot of people have already heard the whole song and dance about Kojima's stories by now, but I always assume that someone somewhere has no idea what I'm talking about, because not everyone knows everything about every game ever. At least in the Metal Gear Solid series and onwards, Kojima's stories are set slightly in the future from when the game is developed, have weird characters, at least one hot lady. Lots of people have weird names, like Hot Coleman. And there's at least some slightly fantastical elements, such as special powers and giant robots that may or may not make the cockpit a little bit too literal. There's also a kind of grandiose tone that his works take on, and I'm going to use a term I first read about in Bakuman of all places. Serious humor, where the characters within a story are taking themselves so seriously that it's comedic. Everyone in Kojima's works takes themselves 95% seriously, and yet that generates either comedy or awe in a player. There's something so silly about a lot of the villains in Kojima's games, mostly in MGS, that makes them so notable compared to other games. I'd also like to mention his gameplay. Admittedly, this is from someone who hasn't played a lot of his games, and most of my interactions with his works is through the lens of Chip Cheesum's Let's Plays, highly recommended, so I can only give the impression of someone who's watched other people play them. Also, stealth games give me horrible anxiety, and I really want to play Zone of the Enders games because they look cool. Kojima tends to do something familiar, but always tries to innovate as much as possible. He has weird and distinctive ideas, and that's cool. He codified the stealth genre. One thing I'd like to point out is Zone of the Enders series gameplay, because they're mecha anime, but a game, and that's rad. Also, the stealth mechanics in the MGS games are more and more thorough and complex as time goes on. I'd be remiss not mention the artist that's been working on Kojima's games for the longest time, Yoji Shinkawa, who's been designing his robots and characters since Policenauts. His art is gorgeous and distinct with a lot of black and white contrasts, but also he was the one who gave Jerry a dick. Why did I choose this? I could have ignored this man's existence entirely and carried on with my life. David Cage's first game was Omicron the Nomad Soul, notable for containing David Bowie. The premise is that you, as in you the player, are the titular nomad soul, travelling between bodies. The first body that you travel to is that of the policeman who asked you to enter his body. One of the first acts you can perform in this game is to enter his wife, if you catch my drift. She has absolutely no idea that the person in her husband's body is not actually her husband. That's fucking creepy on a moral level. Another notable game of his is either called Fahrenheit or Indigo Prophecy, depending on where you live. You play as 3 people: a murderer, a female police officer, and her detective partner, who is black. You get to perv on her in the shower for some reason. She falls in love with the murderer she's chasing around and fucks him after he becomes some kind of zombie, I guess. Also, the black man, who is voiced by a white person, by the way, fucks off for the last leg of the game, never to be seen or heard from again. Next is Heavy Rain. All I know about this one is... I also don't know much about Detroit Become Human, so the last game of his I'll mention is Beyond Two Souls, which stars Elliot Page and actual Shinigami Willem Dafoe. If you've heard of this game, you probably know where I'm going with this. This will come in 2 parts. Apparently, before even agreeing to act in this game, David Cage collected an album full of pictures of Elliot Page, dating from childhood. Why do you need childhood pictures of any adult that you're going to be working with if it's irrelevant to the work? His transition adds an extra ick to a non-family member having his childhood and pre-transition pictures. Secondly, and this is the worst part, he created a new model of Elliot Page without his consent in spite of a no nudity clause in his contract, and for an extra kick this was also pre-transition. These 2 things combined create something so incredibly violating that I feel like I need to highlight it. Somehow none of this got him fucking excommunicated from the industry at large either. This one's gonna be a palate cleanser compared to the last point. My notes called this man the least horny person on this list. He can make you laugh out loud 1 second, make you cry the next, and then, if you make the wrong choice, give you forever nightmares. I'm going to say something mildly controversial here. I don't think he's a perfect game designer. He makes an excellent story, yes, but I think his mechanics design could use a bit of work. I have some trouble using my right hand sometimes due to repetitive strain injury, and I had a lot of trouble with Undertale and Deltarune until I used my homemade fight stick to play it. And then I had significantly less trouble. The only thing I could feasibly ask of to rectify this is to consider accessibility in the form of an easier mode. I'm not saying to make it like wildly easy, just easier. I know that the gameplay is part of the diegesis, but like, I'm sorry, I don't care. Not everyone can do bullet hells. I do not think Toby Fox makes bad games at all. My sister bought me the art book for Undertale, and it's incredible, but also, like, accessibility is good. And while I'm here, I'd like to mention Temmie, one of the artists for Undertale. I like their art. They do super charming animations. That's it. Ah yes, one of my gay crushes, Christine Love. Why is there a file in my videos folder called Angela Nuts? Christine Love, who, let's face it, has a very good name, makes story-heavy games and, I think she might be gay? I get that impression somehow. I've played 2 of Christine Love's games, the first of which has a very long name. My twin brother made me cross-dress as him, and now I have to deal with a geeky stalker and a dumb beauty who want me in a bind. or simply lady killer in a bind. The titular lady killer is a woman. She's also super gay. The game is split up into the daytime and nighttime. In the day, you're chatting up the protagonist's twin brothers' classmates, and at night, you're doing the diddly with either the geeky stalker or Dom Beauty, and depending on who you do, you get different benefits for either choice. Also, the censored version gives everyone Christmas sweaters. Get in the Car Loser is basically if you take my criticisms of Final Fantasy 15 and get rid of them. The character interactions are super charming. I adore the protagonists. I also like the gameplay as well to top it off. I did actually stream this game, and Lord help me, Angela! On another note, I love the setting of the game. It's the kind of modern setting where swords and sorcery has progressed into the modern day. It's very neat. The systems are all cool. I'm gay. Also, Get in the Car Loser's soundtrack was composed by Crystal Lee, and that soundtrack is super duper catchy, and I highly recommend you give it a listen. I kind of want to cover Spirit of the Times, not gonna lie. To conclude, I don't really have a negative or positive opinion on auteur theory. I find these people and the relationship to their work super fascinating, but also you can easily forget that there is more than just these people working on these games, hence my mentioning other people involved in the games where I could. And I mostly have a positive opinion on these people. Except for David Cage. And there were a few more people I was gonna do, like, but I think these are the people I know the most about, I'd say. And there are a few others that I can't because I simply don't know enough about them, as neat as they are. Like Yoko Taro. Anyway, I hope you all like this, and if you want to give a subscribe or a thumbs up, that would be neat. And also I stream as often as I can, as often as my mental health lets me. I mean, mostly Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. And yeah, drop a hot subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment. I'd be interested in other people's thoughts and theories and opinions. And if you can think of anyone else who would fit under the banner of auteur,